It's now 137 days till Election Day, and an issue heating up on the trail are rising tensions with Iran. The New York Times reported today about a recent Israeli military exercise this spring that may have been a preparation for an airstrike against Iranian nuclear facilities. Israeli sources confirmed to Fox News this afternoon that the exercise took place in mid-May and included more than 100 Israeli F-15 and F-16 fighter jets flying a simulated mission over the Mediterranean. So the Israelis are preparing to strike, and Barack Obama is preparing to talk. Will an escalation with Iran prove to be an October surprise? Joining us now is Republican strategist Kate Obenshain and Democratic strategist Chris Kofinas. Chris and Kate, thanks for being with us. Good Friday evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, Kate, my understanding is this actually is what it seems. It's a potential warm-up for a strike against Iran, which obviously is not a great option, and all of us hope it doesn't come to that. But when Israel has done this before, when they did it against an Iraqi reactor in the early 1980s, when they just recently struck a burgeoning nuclear facility in Syria, there's no doubt the world was better off for it.
Look, 10 days ago, Rich, the Supreme Commander of Iran was giving this speech to this frenzied crowd where he talked about the fact that terrorists are about to acquire nuclear weapons and they will take away the security of the world's tyrants, which of course is the United States. The crowd is cheering death to Israel and these other horrific slogans. Oh, and nuclear energy are absolute right. So this whole line of Iran that they're just trying to get nuclear energy is a joke. They are acquiring nuclear weapons. They're on the verge of it, and Israel's doing what it should be expected to do, and that is preparing to defend itself, because clearly the international community doesn't possess the will and the fortitude to put an end to this attempt of Iran.
So, Chris, are the Israelis being foolish here, not realizing Barack Obama's going to be the next president? He's going to sit down with the mullahs and he's going to work this all out.
Well, I mean, let's be honest about what this is. I mean, Israel obviously has a right to defend itself. They're clearly rattling the saber and I think sending a very strong message to Iran about the consequences if they keep on their nuclear weapons program. But this is a dramatic failure of the Bush administration and a dramatic failure of a policy that hasn't worked. When Bush came into office, Iran had 0 centrifuges. Since he's been in office, over the last 8 years, they now have 3,000. They've moved closer and closer to a nuclear weapons program. So what Senator Obama wants is to take the country in a new direction in foreign policy. That doesn't mean when you talk, you capitulate. That doesn't mean when you talk, you make deals. That means you can talk tough and make it very clear. It's clear that the diplomacy and the foreign policy of this administration hasn't worked. We've got to go a new direction.
Yeah, well,
because
Chris,
clearly the easy option is to simply strike and go to war. That is not the option I think we want.
I agree with you, surprisingly enough, that the Bush administration's policy has basically been a failure here because it has, relied on the EU3, which hasn't been tough enough on Iran. It has been talking and cajoling and whispering in their ears to no effect. And let me ask you, though, Chris, on another key foreign policy issue, because one thing that Obama always says, it's not necessarily experience, it's judgment. So let's talk about a judgment issue. 2 years ago, when we were considering the surge, Barack Obama opposed the surge in Iraq. So let me ask you, after implementing the surge in Iraq, is al-Qaeda winning in Iraq, or is al-Qaeda now losing in Iraq?
Rich, did we go to a war in Iraq to fight al-Qaeda? Al-Qaeda wasn't there.
That wasn't the question. That wasn't the question.
No. So, I mean, listen, if the question is Iraq
al-Qaeda
more
better
stable,
off or worse off in Iraq now?
Wait. If Iraq is more stable, is it more secure in Iraq since the surge? Absolutely. But understand what the goal here is.
Absolutely.
But we understand something, Rich. Understand something. The goal of our foreign policy should not be to go in and basically divide two warring parties in a civil war. We have got to move to a place where the Iraqi people have come to terms with the fact that they have to control the destiny of their own country.
Al-Qaeda in Iraq is getting beaten now in Iraq. It's getting beaten. That is good for the war on terror.
Excuse me, it's my turn to speak. Kate.
Go ahead, Al.
I know Rich doesn't
let me stop you.
And it's very nice to share, isn't it, Rich? Okay. Let me go to Kate. I know I'm very passionate about this issue. Kate, wasn't Iran much better contained before the Iraq War?
This just cracks me up that liberals are actually suggesting
I'm
that
not liberals. I'm one liberal. My name is Alan. I'm singular, not plural.
You speak for a lot of liberals, Alan. That liberals actually think that Iran would be this loving, peaceful
You're not answering my question, Kate.
Kate,
you're ignoring my question. Was Iran better contained before the Iraq War?
No, Iran has
was
just
not.
been, it's a steady
Yes, it was.
drumbeat towards its goal. These are people
Kate,
who are willing to kill
excuse me.
themselves in order to rid
Kate,
the
you're ignoring
world
my question.
of
Are
this
you
bacteria.
suggesting...
Alan, no, I am not suggesting that we were better off before
No,
George
I didn't
Bush's
say
policies.
we. Was Iran better contained when Saddam Hussein was in power and was a bulwark against Iran because he hated Iran? And wasn't that a safer situation for Israel and the United States since Iran was contained?
That is such a foolish argument
yes
to
or no?
suggest that we should have never
Sounds like a no.
gone
Is
that a
against
yes or
Saddam
no?
Hussein. Look, Alan, the real point here is that Barack Obama has made clear that he does want to shift policy. He wants to
you're
grant
changing the argument.
constitutional
I'm not
rights
asking about
to
Barack Obama.
terrorists.
You are avoiding my question. Iran was contained.
No,
it was contained by Saddam Hussein. We
You
had
keep saying
inspectors
that.
in
My
Iraq.
answer is no, but you just have a different opinion on it. And my suggestion is that Saddam Hussein was not
but we all
providing
knew the answer.
an acceptable buffer.
All right, Chris, they don't want to acknowledge that what has happened is because of our invasion of Iraq, we've created
if only we had
United
Saddam
States
back,
fault.
right, Alan?
I mean,
if only Saddam were back.
nobody can contain themselves around here right now. But the fact of the matter, Chris, is we need containment on Hannity Colmes. The fact of the matter, Chris, is that we have a more porous border with Iran. We have more infiltration because of what happened in Iraq. We have Iran, Iran's being accused of sneaking into Iraq and supporting those who want to kill us. That wasn't happening when Saddam Hussein was in power and before we invaded that country.
Yeah, I mean, the part that I find stunning is if you look at all the independent analysis, there are more terrorists now than there were before 9/11. The threat of terrorism has grown, is not dissipated. There's, the violence in Iraq may have stabilized, but the factions, the divisions, and the political problems still persist. This has been an unmitigated failure, and that's why we need to go in a new direction. That's why John McCain's policies just don't
put our
make
head in the
any
sand
sense.
and ignore the nuclear threat of Iran and just pretend like if we talk to them, we can all be one big happy family.
Be smart about it and not continue 8 years of failure.
That sounds great.
We'll
Grant
give you both the
constitutional rights
last
to
words here,
terrorists.
but we got to run. We thank you both very much for coming on with us. And coming up.